Hi everyone, welcome back to DGMZ, Diwan-e-Ghalib, Meri Subhani. To all our returning viewers, we are very happy you could join us again. And to the new viewers, we are delighted you discovered the podcast and decided to tune in for the first time. Now, if you were with me in the previous episode, you know that we finished Ghazal 29 from Diwan-e-Ghalib. That means today we get to start a new Ghazal, Ghazal 30 from Diwan-e-Ghalib. True to DGMZ tradition, for the first episode of the Ghazal, I am going to read the entire Ghazal. Going forward, I will just read the couplet that we are going to pick up for that episode. So, allow me to narrate to you Ghazal 30 from Diwan-e-Ghalib. मतला अर्ज किया है, जब बा-तक़रीब-ए-सफ़र यार ने महमिल बांधा। जब बा-तक़रीब-ए-सफ़र यार ने महमिल बांधा, तपिश-ए-शौक़ ने हर ज़र्रे पे एक दिल बांधा। अहल-ए-बिनाश ने बा-हairat-Kadaa-e-Shokhi-e-Naaz। अहल-ए-बिनाश ने बा-हairat-Kadaa-e-Shokhi-e-Naaz जौहर-ए-आईना को तूती-ए-बिस्मिल बांधा। यास-ओ-उम्मीद ने यक-अर्बदा मैदान मांगा। यास-ओ-उम्मीद ने यक-अर्बदा मैदान मांगा। इज्ज-ए-हिम्मत ने तिलिस्म-ए-Dil-e-Sail बांधा। ना बंधे तशनगी-ए-ज़ौक़ के मज़मून गालिब। ना बंधे तशनगी-ए-ज़ौक़ के मज़मून गालिब, गर्चे दिल खोल के दरिया को भी साहिल बांधा। Again, a comparatively short ghazal. It has 4 couplets. Today we are going to pick the first one, the Matla of the ghazal. So, let me read the Matla one more time. जब बा-तक़रीब-ए-सफ़र यार ने महमिल बांधा, तपिश-ए-शौक़ ने हर ज़र्रे पे एक दिल बांधा. Let's start with a quick approximate translation. First line, जब बा-तक़रीब-ए-सफ़र यार ने महमिल बांधा. When, with the objective of travel, the beloved arranged the camel litter. Second line, तपिश-ए-शौक़ ने हर ज़र्रे पे एक दिल बांधा. The heat of desire and yearning then tied a heart to every grain of sand. So that is the approximate translation. Like we always say, the approximate translation usually does not make complete sense, but let's see how that transforms after the impression. So, let's start picking the keywords. Taqrib. Taqrib translates to an occasion, a reason or an opportunity to do something, right? Sometimes an excuse to do something. So, what was the conduit? What was the reason? What was the excuse? What was the occasion to do something? That is तक़रीब. इस पे मिर्ज़ा गालिब का शेर, गमे दुनिया से गर पाई भी फुर्सत सर उठाने की, फलक का देखना तक़रीब तेरे याद आने की. We have covered this, right? The approximate translation is, if ever from the grief of the world I had the opportunity to lift my head for a second. Otherwise I was always engrossed in it, head down, right? But if ever I got a second to raise my head from this grief and sorrow of the world and looked towards the sky. This looking towards the sky became an occasion, became a reason, became an opportunity to remember you. मीर तकी मीर का ये शेर, वो जो फिरता है मुझसे दूर ही दूर, ब्यूटिफुल वन, वो जो फिरता है मुझसे दूर ही दूर है ये तकरीब जी के जाने की. The approximate translation is that one who always roams far away from me, who always maintains a distance from me. This will be the reason, this will be the occasion, this will be the excuse for me losing my heart, losing my life, this distance. And in our couplet, Taqrib is used as a word complex, Ba-Taqrib, right? So Ba-Taqrib again is just an extension of Taqrib on the occasion of. इस पे ये शेर किसका है? नाम नहीं लिखा है. I will put it in the comments, but let's not lose the शेर. I forgot to add the name of the शायर. So this is the शेर. वक्त है गर तो बात तकरीबे इयादत आवे, वक्त है गर तो बात तकरीबे इयादत आवे, क्योंकि बीमार का तेरे बतर अहवाल है आज. The approximate translation is, if you have time, then on the occasion of paying a visit to the sick, come. Of course, this is addressed to the beloved, because this lovesick lover of yours today has worsened in their condition. So, on the occasion of paying a visit to a sick person, come, because today the condition has worsened. Alright, so that takes care of Taqrib and by extension Ba-Taqrib. Let's move on to Safar. Safar is a very common word, we still use it. Not very complex. What it technically translates to is traveling, journeying, voyage, trip, tour. इस पे अहमद फराज का एक शेर, जुदाइयाँ तो मुकद्दर हैं फिर भी जाने सफ़र. अगेन अ गुड वन. जुदाइयाँ तो मुकद्दर हैं फिर भी जाने सफ़र, कुछ और दूर ज़रा साथ चल के देखते हैं. Let's take a chance, right? A little more, a little longer. So the approximate translation is, yes, separation is destined. Separation is inevitable. Still, my companion of this journey of life, let's travel together a little more longer, a little more further. Lovely couplet. So that takes care of Safar. Moving on to Mahmil, a new word for us at DGMZ. So Mahmil is a saddle for a camel. It is also called a litter. It is also called a dorser. Called a dorser when it is exclusively a Mahmil in which women or kids travel. What it is a four-legged structure that is put on the camel's back so that people can sit on it. There are a lot of variations of Mahmil. We will cover some of them when we get into the impression. But for now, just for understanding what we are talking about, a wooden structure placed on the back of the camel for passengers to sit on it during their travel or journey. इस पर आलमा इकबाल का ये शेर, खुफ्ता खा के पैर सिपर में है शरार अपना तो क्या, खुफ्ता खा के पैर सिपर में है शरार अपना तो क्या, आरजी महमिल है ये मुश्ते गुबार अपना तो क्या. Beautiful couplet. Approximate translation is, so what? So what if our enthusiasm, if our spark, if our fire is hidden in dust, and protected that way. So what if this Mahmil is temporary, right, in which we exist? Gubar-e-Musht is usually, it translates to handful of dust, but metaphorically it is meant for man or human being, right? We are but a handful of dust. We were made from a handful of dust. We will get back to a handful of dust. So, beautiful couplet from Allama Iqbal where he says that, so what if our fire was destined to be hidden in dust? Our spark was destined to be hidden in dust. So what if this Mahmil, this carrier on which we are, is temporary, right? Because it is a mushte gubar, fistful of dust. All right, that takes care of Mahmil. Moving on to Tapish-e-Shauq, a word complex in the second line. Tapish is heat, warmth, but very hot, right? So intense heat. And Shauq is love, desire, passion, yearning, wanting. इस पे मुनीर शिकोहा बादी का शेर. याद उस बुत की नमाजों में जो आई मुझको, तपिश शौक से हर बार मैं बैठा उठा. The approximate translation is, when I was doing my namaz prayers, if ever I was to remember that idol, and we have covered many times in our episodes, idol is what the beloved is referred to in Urdu poetry. So if I ever remembered that idol during the offering of namaz prayers by me, that heat of memory, wanting, yearning, desire made me sit and stand again and again. And the pun is that on the surface from outside it would look as if the lover is offering prayers, is doing namaz, but the actual reason for the lover to stand and sit was this memory of that idol that came to him during his namaz. Zahida Khatun Sharviya ka ye sher. मैं शरिस्ता तपिश शौक से था जो सीना, मैं शरिस्ता तपिश शौक से था जो सीना, मकबरा हसरत अरमान का बना तेरे बाद. So the approximate translation is that chest, by extension that heart, which was a picture of doomsday, judgment day, calamity. Such was the noise, such was the fervor, such was the passion, commotion in it. That heart, which was a picture of a calamitous, tumultuous doomsday, transformed into a grave, a tombstone. Once you were gone. Beautiful couplet, just amazing visualization, the contrast between a noisy, frenzied, passionate, fiery doomsday to the dead, silent, lost in oblivion, right? Lost to everybody, lost to time itself, grave or tombstone. All right, that takes care of Tapish-e-Shauq. Moving on to Zarre. Zarre, again a very common word. It means particle of anything, but in Urdu poetry usually particle of dust, particle of sand, grain of sand. इस पे मिर्ज़ा गालिब का शेर है, कायनात को हरकत तेरे ज़ौक़ से, है कायनात को हरकत तेरे ज़ौक़ से, परतव से आफ़ताब के ज़र्रे में जा है. The approximate translation is, the entire creation, the entire celestial universe on the top gets its motion, gets its energy from your desire. Tere zauq se, from your desire, from your passion. Just like from the ray of the sun, every particle on earth is alive. Everything on earth is alive, no matter how small, no matter how big. What sun does for earth, you lover, your passion and your fire does for the heavens above. है कायनात को हरकत तेरे ज़ौक़ से. Beautiful couplet. Whenever we come to it, would be great to build an impression. Alright, so that takes care of Zarre. Dil is heart, bandha is tight, fixed, set in a way. So we will not get into it, very simple words, right? And that will take care of all the key words. Time to get into our impression. So, first line. जब Ba-Taqrib-e-Safar Yaar ne Mahmil baandha. When with the objective of travel, the beloved saddled up, bound, fixed, tied the Mahmil or the camel litter, or like we said, the camel dorser to the camel. Ghalib kickstarts his 30th Ghazal with this Matla. The translation of this line is not very complex. When the beloved, on the occasion of her travels, tied up the camel litter or saddle or dorser or Mahmil. Simple enough, right? On the surface, at first glance, seems like a normal, common thing any traveler would do. Get their baggage and get their transport ready to embark on their journey. At least we at DGMZ thought it was that simple, it was that common. Of course, we realize it is the beloved who is traveling. So there is going to be an impact on the lover because she is going away. But that was it. That's what we thought when we translated and had a preliminary understanding of the couplet. It is a good thing that at DGMZ we are as big a fan of Sherlock Holmes as we are of Mirza Ghalib, because the research, the detective nature or passion of ours comes handy when we have to do DGMZ research. And post-research, we realized that true to his style, once again, Ghalib has hidden multiple layers of information, multiple layers of meaning and interpretation in this couplet. In both lines, he has done this, and this information, this meaning, this interpretation would remain unknown, would remain hidden if the reader did not have the required background context. Though not all, but most of the mysteries Ghalib created in his couplets came with their own keys and clues which were hidden in the couplet. Not all of them, but most of them. Now, thankfully for this couplet, he has hidden the keys, he has hidden the clues in the couplet itself. You just need to identify them and then deep dive into them. So the keys or the clues of the first line are hidden in two words, Safar and Mahmil. Safar is journey. Mahmil is, like we said, that saddle which is put on the back of the camel for travel. We will build the background context layer by layer basis these two keys and clues. Let's start with Mahmil. Now, as we covered in the keywords, Mahmil is the litter or the saddle that is set, fixed, tied on the camel for travelers to mount it for their journey. Therefore, as evident, Mahmil is something that is used in desert lands for journeys where camels are the only mode of transport. So, by introducing that word Mahmil in the first line, Ghalib, in his unique style, in an unsaid way, has introduced desert, has introduced camel, and has introduced traveling in the desert via a camel. These mahmils or saddles were used to carry either double load or carry women, kids, so as to protect their delicate bodies from the harshness of the desert during travel. For the same purpose, these mahmils were designed as covered wooden structures, which were placed on the camel's back. The more affluent, the more rich the traveler was, the more elaborate the mahmil was. It could be as simple as a 4-wall, 1-roof, 1-floor wooden structure, or it could be an elaborated, intricate, ornamented wooden structure with silken curtains, etc. What it did was that it served as an enclosed, private chamber for the women and the kid travelers, offering them both protection and privacy. Now, there is another version of mahmil called mahmal. This was a ceremonial, passenger-less saddle or litter, which was carried on a camel among caravans of pilgrims on the Hajj to Mecca. It symbolized the political power of the sultans who sent it, demonstrating their custody of Islam's holy sites. Each mahmal had an intricately embroidered textile cover or sitr. The tradition dates back at least to the 13th century and ended in the mid-20th century. Now, this particular ceremonial version called mahmal is not directly related to our couplet today, but we just wanted to give you that information to ensure that the background context to mahmil was comprehensive and complete for you. Coming back to mahmil, which is the saddle on the camel specifically designed to carry women passengers on their travels across the desert, this is the key. This is the clue, dear viewers, where you start seeing the emergence of the immortal, one and only love story. A love story that has ruled the desert like no other love story. A love story with two characters that have been etched and imprinted on the sands of time forever. We introduce you to the one and only Laila and Majnun. मीर तकीमीर का ये शेर, कैस का क्या क्या गया उधर, दिलो दीन होशो सब्र, जिस तरफ सहरा से लैला का चला महमिल गया. The approximate translation is, what all of Cas, which was the original name for Majnun, what all of Cas went that way. His heart, his wisdom, his awareness, his patience, everything followed that path on which Laila's mahmil departed, or Laila's mahmil travelled. Wherever Laila's mahmil went, Cas's heart, mind, patience, wisdom, everything followed. फजल हुसैन सबीर का ये शेर, मोहब्बत आपकी हरगिज़ ना मेरे दिल से निकलेगी, क़यामत में भी ये लैला ना इस महमिल से निकलेगी. The approximate translation is, never ever will your love depart my heart, come out and leave my heart. This Laila, which is your love, will never depart this mahmil, which is my heart. मोहम्मद याहा जमील का ये शेर, महमिल लैला सराब अंदर सराब, महमिल लैला सराब अंदर सराब, बेकरां है ज़ात के सहरा का गम. The approximate translation is, the mahmil of Laila, as if a mirage under a mirage, not under inside. as if a mirage inside a mirage. That is what Mahmil of Laila is. And unlimited, boundless, shoreless is the grief of the sand, of the desert at this. Right? So the sand of the desert can see the Mahmil, but they know that that Mahmil is a mirage and the Laila inside it is also a mirage. And hence the grief at this mirage is shoreless, bankless, boundaryless, unlimited. Now, Laila's Mahmil, like everything else about Laila, gets its fire, its passion from the one and only Majnu. As the story goes, viewers, Majnu, dejected with his fate that did not allow Laila to be his, gave up all worldly ties and went into the desert's wilderness with his love, with his desire, and with his thoughts of Laila. Laila, on the other hand, was left behind as part of her tribe. Despite this distance, Majnu, from his desert's wilderness, always, constantly, continuously kept looking out for any sign of Laila. That was his junoon. That is where the passion, that is where the fervor, that is where the madness comes. In anything and everything, Majnu searched for Laila. Mahmil was one such big sign that Majnu always looked out for. Majnu knew that Laila's tribe, like all other tribes, traveled the desert and laid tents and camps in different places. Such caravans traveling from one campsite to another had many Mahmils, and of course, Majnu would always search these caravans from his desert's wilderness for Laila's Mahmil. Such was the intensity, such was the fervor, such was the passion of this search for Laila's Mahmil by Majnu that Majnu has forever enshrined Laila's Mahmil in the world of love, in the desert, in history, in poetry, in paintings. Lala Kanji Mal Saba ka ye sher. Let me say that again. Lala Kanji Mal Saba ka ye sher. भटका फिरे है मजनू लैला के काफिले में. भटका फिरे है मजनू लैला के काफिले में, ये पूछता कि यारों महमिल किधर गया है. The approximate translation is, he is wandering, lost in the caravans with Laila, asking everyone and anyone, where has her Mahmil gone? He is looking for her Mahmil. लुत्फुल्ला खां नज़्मी का ये शेर. ना मिला महमिल लैला का सुराग, ना मिला महमिल लैला का सुराग, कैस हर समत पुकार आया है. The approximate translation is, he did not get even a clue. He did not get a single clue about where her Mahmil is, where her Mahmil was. Cass has gone in every direction and searched for it, called out for it, looked for it, but no clue. And then Mir Taqi Mir ka ye sher. 100 बार बयाबा में गया महमिल लैला. 100 बार 100 बार बयाबा में गया महमिल लैला, मजनू की तरफ नाका कोई गाम ना आया. Naka is the she camel and gam is a step, a footstep. So the approximate translation is 100 times the caravan carrying Laila, the caravan with the Mahmil of Laila travelled, and 100 times, not even once, a single step of her she camel came towards the direction of Majnu. It is Mir, so of course, look at the visualization. 100 times Laila and her tribe travelled the desert. The caravan passed, the Mahmil passed, and not even once did her camel put even one step in the direction of Majnun. The heart-wrenching fact is that Majnu, despite this lifelong search, this lifelong waiting, never got to see Layla's Mahmil. Layla's Mahmil and Layla always eluded Majnu in the desert. मीर तकी मीर का ये शेर, तड़पना नक्शे पाए नाका पर, जाने है एक मजनू, बयाबा में वो लैला का किधर महमिल है क्या जाने. The approximate translation is to squirm in grief, to get tortured in grief on every single footstep imprint from Layla's camel. That Majnu knows. That Majnu knows how to grieve and torture on the footprint of Layla's camels. Every single footprint. That Majnu knows. But in this desert, where the Mahmil is, that he doesn't know. That he could never find out. That is an unknown to him. मिसाम हैदर का ये शेर, मेरे वजूद से इनकार कर रही है खाक, मेरे वजूद से इनकार कर रही है खाक, कहीं तो मैं मिले लैला मेरी गवाही दे. What a couplet. The approximate translation is, the dust, the sand is denying me my right, is denying me my rightful existence. Somewhere Mahmil of Layla should speak for me, should give गवाही को क्या कहते हैं, a testimony for me, that yes, he is rightfully part of dust. Let him get incorporated in your existence. Dust, I am Layla, I can vouch. He has turned himself to dust, thanks to following my Mahmil, right, throughout his life. Now, though there are no documented incidents of an actual physical encounter between Majnu and Layla's Mahmil with Layla in it, the symbolic and the metaphorical interlock between Majnu and Layla's Mahmil is undeniable. So much so that Layla's Mahmil is more a part of Majnu than it is part of Layla herself in poetry, literature and paintings. Such was the we say that something, once it is locked on its target, right? Now the target can go anywhere. The thing that is locked on it will follow it. Such was Majnu. He was locked onto Layla's Mahmil. Layla's Mahmil will have Majnu. Whether Majnu can see it, whether Majnu can reach it, doesn't matter. But wherever Majnu was, he was laser focused, locked on Layla's Mahmil. And hence Layla's Mahmil became part of Majnu more than part of Layla herself. जलील मनिकपुरी का ये शेर, खुदा जाने गुबारे राह है ये या कैसे लैला. Another good one. खुदा जाने गुबारे राह है ये या कैसे लैला, कोई आगोश खोले पर्दाए महमिल से मिलता है. Beautiful couplet. Approximate translation is, Layla, I cannot figure out whether this is the dust of the road or path or is it Majnu, Cass. But I know this for sure, that there is something which is coming with open arms to embrace the curtains of your Mahmil. You can deny it or ignore it as just a cloud of sand or dust. But I ask you, Layla, what do you think it is? Is it a cloud of dust or is it Cass, who has mixed with the dust and is now coming to embrace your Mahmil? That laser focus, right? मीर तकी मीर का ये शेर, शौक में ये महमिले लैला के होकर बेकरार. Another good one. शौक में ये महमिले लैला के होकर बेकरार, एक निहादे वादिये मजनू से उठ चलती है गर्द. The approximate translation is, in the desire, in the yearning for the Mahmil of Laila, restless, very restless, from the valley of Majnu, starts this dust storm that will now make its way to Laila's Mahmil. Such was Majnu's passion, such was the metaphorical, almost supernatural, right, presence of Majnu in that desert, that at any time from the valley of Majnu, right, Nihade Wadiye Majnu, the valley where Majnu and his descendants stayed or belonged to, कभियों वहाँ से ये गुबार, this dust storm would erupt, would form, and then start making its way towards Laila's Mahmil. And this last one by Bedam Shah Warsi, गुबारे कैस नहीं है तो कौन है लैला, गुबारे कैस नहीं है तो कौन है लैला, कोई तो है कि जो फिरता है गिर्द महमिल के. Same vibe, right? The approximate translation is, if this is not a dust storm of Cas or Majnu, what is it, Laila? You tell me. If it is not Majnu in a dust storm, what is it? There is something that is circling your Mahmil continuously, laser focused on your Mahmil. There is something that is circling it. Yeah, you can hear the passion in my voice, right? This is one of our favorite stories. We have done a mini series on it, right? Okay, now with that background context, we can appreciate the huge symbolic meaning behind this first line, in which the beloved is preparing the Mahmil for her journey through the desert. Ghalib, in his unsaid way, in this first line, has captured beloved as an embodiment of Laila. For Ghalib the lover, this action of the beloved mirrors Laila and consequently evokes emotions in the lover similar to what Laila's Mahmil evoked in Majnu's heart. The feeling of separation, the feeling of distance, the feeling of yearning, searching, wanting, waiting. जहाँ लैला का महमिल तैयार हुआ, वहाँ मजनू की बेकरारी चालू हुई. As soon as Laila's mahmil gets ready, Majnu's restlessness spikes, right? Spikes to no end. Jab, at the beginning of the first line, tells us that whatever follows, which is Laila Mahmil bandh rahi hai, is a trigger. So Jab, by extension when, she prepped her camel with the Mahmil. This trigger, this action of the beloved saddling up her camel with the Mahmil will kickstart a series of both reactions and actions at the lover's end. Now, to know more about what these reactions and actions at the lover's end were, we have to move to the second line. So, let's get into the second line. Tapish-e-Shauq ne har zarre pe ek dil baandha. The heat of desire, wanting, passion tied a heart on every single grain of sand. That's the translation. Tapish-e-Shauq, heat and burning of desire, yearning, wanting, deep longing, right? This Tapish-e-Shauq is the reaction to the trigger that the beloved did in the first line. As we discussed, the trigger was beloved saddling up her camel, setting up her mahmil for her travels. The lover, seeing this, almost starts to burn up in a myriad of emotions. emotions of yearning and wanting. This fire is fueled with the thought of separation from the beloved. Tapish-e-Shauq is no ordinary fire, no ordinary heat, right? This is an all consuming, all powerful, all encompassing heat of desire and wanting and passion. It is very interesting how various Urdu poets and shairs capture the ability of this intense emotion, shock, tapish-e-shauq, to actually make physical actions happen. Sometimes at the lover's end, sometimes at the beloved's end. But in Urdu poetry, it's a very unique thing that we have, where this ardor, this desire, this fire inside the lover will actually manifest as physical things happening around him without him doing anything. It is just by this fire that he has in him that these things will manifest and happen. मीर तकी मीर का ये शेर, जज्बाए इश्क जिधर चाहे ले जाए है महमिल लैला का. गुड वन. जज्बाए इश्क जिधर चाहे ले जाए है महमिल लैला का, यानी हाथ में मजनू के नाके की उसके महार है आज. So the approximate translation is this jazba-e ishq, this emotion of love, right? This intense emotion of love can redirect Layla's Mahmil in any direction. Such is its power, such is its intensity. This emotion of love, and of course love is at Majnu's end. So Majnu's emotion of love has such power in it that it can redirect Layla's Mahmil to any direction. So the fact of the matter is that the rein of the bridle of Layla's camel is in the hands of Majnu. It is in the hands of Majnu. मीर तकी मीर का ही शेर, लाया मेरे मज़ार पे उसको ये जज्बाए इश्क, जिस बेवफा को नाम से भी मेरे नंग था. The approximate translation is, it forced her to come to my tomb. This emotion of love and passion. That same beloved who detested talking about me or talking to me when I was alive. Such is the intensity, such is the power of this emotion. Like I said, Urdu poetry portrays this intense passion and love as an emotion that has power that can make physical things happen. यगाना चंगेजी का ये शेर, नज़ाराए रुखे लैला मुबारक ए मजनू. नज़ाराए रुखे लैला मुबारक ए मजनू, निगाह शौक ने पर्दे उठाए मैं मिल के. Lovely couplet, right? Approximate translation is, congratulations Majnu that you get the long awaited glimpse of Layla. Congratulations Majnu that you get the long awaited glimpse of Layla, your passion, your love and its intensity has the passion and intensity in your eyes, right, to see her, has lifted the curtains of Mahmil. Majnu has not lifted it. It is the emotion, the intensity of his eyes, the yearning, the wanting to see her that has gone ahead and lifted the curtain up from the Mahmil, revealing Layla to her. So this Tapish-e-Shauq is not some ordinary Tapish-e-Shauq. This Tapish-e-Shauq comes with an intensity, a power that can do things which are unthinkable, that can do things which are beyond rational and logic. So Tapish-e-Shauq is the reaction to the trigger which the beloved created in the first line by saddling her camel and putting a Mahmil on it. Let's move on to the action in response to that trigger. So the action in response to that trigger is हर जर्रे पे एक दिल बांधा. तपिश-ए-शौक ने हर जर्रे पे एक दिल बांधा. The key with the clues in this second line lie in this word, har zarre. Just like they did in the word Mahmil in the first line. So, har zarre, when the background is desert, actually means unlimited. There are 2-3 things in nature that we quote when we want to talk about unlimited things. One is stars up above, and one is grains of sand below. So, har zarra, every particle in context of a desert, which is the context playing out in this couplet, actually symbolizes unlimited, infinity, right? Now, who was the one and only to rule each and every grain of sand of the deserts of Najd? Who was it? No other can claim that other than the one and only Majnu. Again, as the story goes, viewers, the dust of the desert, the sand of the desert became one with Majnu. As Majnu, in his frenzy, in his passion, in his junoon, wandered far and wide in the hot, scorching desert. Not only did Majnu own each and every grain of sand of that hot, vast, arid, lonely desert, when he lived, once he died, he became one with that same dust, with that same sand, and gained a type of immortality that no other lover can claim. The desert took in Majnu when he was alive, and the desert took in Majnu when he died. Once he died, Majnu became part of the existence of the sands of that desert forever and ever. It is said, whenever a frenzied, passionate dust storm rises somewhere in the desert, it is Majnu stirring up to start once again his never-ending search for Laila. मीर तकी मीर का शेर, खा के मजनू जहाँ है सहरा में, खा के मजनू जहाँ है सहरा में, वहाँ से उठता है एक गुबार हनूस. The approximate translation is, wherever the dust of Majnu is present in this desert, from those places you will see these dust storms arise, right? Erupt even today, even now. ज़ीशान नियाजी का शेर, एहसान खा के सहरा पे मजनू का है बहुत, एहसान खा के सहरा पे है मजनू का बहुत, वरना फलक पे उसका पहुंचना मुहाल था. The approximate translation is, the dust, the sand of the desert is forever grateful to Majnu. Otherwise, there was no way this dust could reach the skies. And here that symbolism, that Majnu's frenzy and passion was such that when it made a dust storm erupt, such was the intensity that the sand and the dust from the desert almost touched the sky. So, एहसान खा के सहरा पे मजनू का है बहुत. If it was not for his passion, the sand and the dust could never reach those heights. वली उल्जत का ये शेर, बरस मत अब्र मिट जाएगा भगोला, खा के मजनू का, खुदा के वास्ते दश्ते जुनू की नाक रहने दे. The approximate translation is, do not rain down. Rains do not pour down, because otherwise you will destroy this sand dune of Majnun. For God's sake, let the glory, let the honor, let the respect of this desert of frenzy remain intact. So do not come down, do not pour down rain, do not destroy the sand dune of Majnun. And last one, Ehsan Danish ka, रूहे मजनू अभी बेताब है सहराओं में, रूहे मजनू अभी बेताब है सहराओं में, खाक बेवजह नहीं उठती बयाबानों की. The approximate translation is, even now the spirit of Majnu wanders restless in the deserts. This type of dust storms do not erupt without rhyme or reason. It is the spirit of Majnu that makes them start, makes them erupt. All that context to let you know that every grain of sand, when discussed with any reference to love, to passion, to frenzy, to junoon of a lover, will have Majnu in the backdrop. It will have Majnu in the backdrop. Sometimes poets will call out Majnu's name in the couplet clearly, while sometimes they will allude to it and let it play in the background like a huge canvas with silent power. Either way, Majnu is there. In today's couplet, once again we see the immortal love story of Laila Majnu play out. When in response to the Laila-like action of the beloved of saddling up her Mahmil, the lover responds with a Majnu-like reaction. Tapish-e-Shauq and action, har Zarre pe ek dil bandha. Burning in the fire of passion and frenzy, the lover went ahead and on every grain of sand tied his heart. Tied a heart. And like I said, grains of sand, unlimited. How many hearts? Unthinkable. Right? Unthinkable. Every grain of sand would have a heart tied to it by the lover. Sounds like an unsurmountable, impossible task. Right? Yes, it is. It is impossible. It is unsurmountable. Unless you are Majnu. Unless you are a lover that embodies Majnu. Then it is possible. Not otherwise. This is not the first time Ghalib has captured the Majnu-like quality of the lover to claim every single grain of sand in the desert. Unka ye sher, dast gahe deeda hai, खून बारे मजनू देखना, यक बयाबां जलवाए गुल फर्शे पा अंदाज है. The approximate translation is, look at the intensity, look at the power of the blood-scattering gaze of Majnu. So he is crying blood, which is a sign of extreme grief, but he is not just crying blood. Such is the intensity of his weeping that blood is almost scattering, spurting out of his eyes. And Ghalib says, look at the power of Majnu's blood-scattering eyes, that the entire floor of the desert seems like a carpet of roses. Ghalib, right? At his best. Van Gogh. Visualization. So much blood is spurted out throughout the desert while he roams and wanders that the desert floor is not even visible. If you look from afar, it almost seems that the whole floor has converted to a carpet of roses. Every grain of sand is covered by his blood. And another one from Ghalib, किस कदर खाक हुआ है दिले मजनू या रब, नक्शे हर जर्रा सुवेदाए बयाबां nikla. So the approximate translation is, how, to what extent, O Lord, the heart of Majnu burnt on and on in that desert. Such was the extent of that burn that every grain of sand has become a black spot. Every grain of sand has become a black spot. And Ghalib, it amazes us, right? In one couplet, roses, in another couplet, burnt out, completely, but both speaking to Majnu's, I would say, ownership of each and every grain of sand in that desert. So this second line captures the intense, frenzied, passionate reaction and action of the lover in a typical Majnu style to the trigger of the beloved, which was in a typical Laila style. So now let's take a few minutes to step back and see what Ghalib did in this couplet today. In DGMZ's humble opinion, Ghalib relived, replayed the old immortal love story of Laila Majnu between the lover and the beloved today in the couplet. Mentioning Laila and Majnu in Urdu and Persian poetry is a very common thing. The two unique masterful strokes Ghalib includes, though, are not so common. The first one is Ghalib does not call out the story of the lovers Laila and Majnu clearly. He does not mention them by their name. He does not even mention the desert. The onus of making the connect of what's happening in the couplet with Laila and Majnu's story lies on the reader. It is the reader's responsibility. It's for the reader to figure out. And the second masterful stroke is how Ghalib, with expertise unmatched, leaves keys and clues for the readers to pick on. Makes the readers become Sherlock Holmes. Right? First line, the clue is Mahmil. If you know what Mahmil is, in comes the camel, in comes the desert, in comes the journey in the desert on a camel. Second line, Tapish-e-Shauq with her Zarra. Now, Tapish-e-Shauq in isolation could have confused you, but Tapish-e-Shauq with every particle of sand, there should be no confusion if you know the story of Laila and Majnu. So, in comes Majnu. In comes Majnu, the one who owned the desert, belonged to the desert. Though Laila Majnu are not mentioned anywhere, they are everywhere. Once again, it reminds us of Ghazal 24, which just had one couplet, Asad hum wo junu jola, gadae be saro paahe, ki hai sar panjae misgane, ahu pusht khar apna. Full Laila Majnu story playing in the background. Very focused on Majnu actually. If you enjoyed what we did today, you will enjoy this episode also. The way Laila Majnu's story emerges from the darkness, right, in today's couplet, bit by bit, from the deep depths, right, it is amazing. It is amazing. It is a joy to unravel it layer by layer. Whenever we come across a Laila Majnu reference in Ghalib's ghazals, we always remind our viewers that we did a full DGMZ mini-series on this story. And believe me, viewers, just to share with you, if we are small today, we were even smaller back then. Very few subscribers. And we had covered just the first few ghazals from Divan. And we had realized Laila Majnu has to be brought to DGMZ. And after months of efforts, despite being so small in size, we appreciate the collaboration Suluk Press did with us and allowed us to narrate the entire story. We went through many versions during our research and decided that was the version which would be the best suited for this podcast and its objective, and we read the entire story, narrated the entire story in that mini-series. If you have time, access it. Okay, because it will come up again and again, not only in Ghalib's poetry, in all Urdu poetry. So just a reminder, it is there if you need it, and we are very proud of it. We are very proud of that thing. It was such a smart move. It is so nice that our viewers now have that ready reference to go back to, and that was the exact reason to do it. All right, now I will end this episode with One wish for the lover and one advice for the lover, especially the lovers who aspire to be Majnun, right? So here is the wish for the lover. Noon Narvi ka ye sher. Badal de is tarah, badal de is tarah ए चरख हुस्न इश्क का मंजर. बदल दे इस तरह ए चरख हुस्न इश्क का मंजर. पसे महमिल हो लैला, कैस हो लैला के महमिल में. The approximate translation is transform it, flip it on its head. O universe, O destiny, O fate above in the sky, flip the view in such a way that Laila is behind the Mahmil, walking behind the Mahmil, and Majnu is inside the Mahmil. Enough time has gone by with Majnu following Laila's Mahmil. O destiny, O fate, O stars above, if you can, flip the scene. And for once, let's have Laila follow the Mahmil and Majnu be inside the Mahmil. Beautiful sher by Noon Narvi. And then here is the advice for the lovers. Ali Minai ka ye sher. Hai lagan तो कीजिए सहरा ना वर्दी मिसले कैस. है लगन तो कीजिए सहरा ना वर्दी मिसले कैस. सिर्फ जिक्र लैलाए महमिल नशी मत कीजिए. Tongue twister. The approximate translation is, if there is love, lagan, right? If there is love, if there is true love, then I implore you to travel, wander, and map the desert like Gas did, like Majnu did. That's what I would ask you to do. And desert symbolically, desert figuratively, desert literally. If there is true love, then I implore you that go ahead and wander, travel, map the desert like Majnu did. Do not only talk about that Laila who is in a Mahmil, right, and travels here and there. Don't just talk about it. Zikre Laila Mahmil Nashi, that Laila who sits in the luxurious Mahmil. Don't just talk about her. I implore you to map, travel, and wander the desert like Gas. All right, that brings us to the end of this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Not just the actual couplet, but in fact the entire story that was playing in the background. Love Ghalib, just love Ghalib. What a treat it is. As always, we'll be very keen to hear your feedback, your comments, and next time we are going to pick up the second couplet. Now, as always for the new viewers, a strong recommendation to access the episode Introduction to DGMZ, because it will give you a good insight into the motivation and inspiration behind this podcast. For our regular viewers, whenever you have time, please access the homepage of the channel. Has a lot of playlists segregated by topics and Ghazal. Surf through them and pick an episode that interests you. A quick reminder, we did put a poll in the post tab. Haven't had a lot of response. If you could spare a few seconds, please go to the post tab and respond to that poll. Just keen to hear your thoughts on that question. And while I am on that topic, I would encourage you not to just wait for these weekend episodes, but whenever you have time, go to the post tab, go to the community tab. We post there throughout the week, right? So don't want you to miss out on that. So do check it out when you get time. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and close this episode by sending a lot of love and light to all you dear viewers, and thanks for watching.